So who would win? One chuny boy or one burger-eating elf? Tune in next week to find out. I am excited, but so sad to know that after next week, it will be longer than a week before the next Eminence and Shadow episode, as it will be wrapping up. But man, this episode didn't pull its punch. It was bloodshed after bloodshed, even if a majority of the bloodshed either happened in the past or didn't actually happen because it was more or less a vision of what would happen if you didn't dodge or at the very least deflect the oncoming attack of, well, Mundane Man. He may be called Mundane Man, but I think all these characters are getting a very rude awakening that, he ain't so mundane after all. And honestly, when you look at Sid's entire persona of what he wanted to do with Mundane Man, he was so close to having the perfect background character, and then Shadow-sama just had to come in at the very end because, of course, he did. This show has been an absolute blessing, and I am so excited to see where it's all gonna wrap up next week here. Obviously, we know they're gonna keep making more. There's the rumored extra 10 episodes, but it will be a break nonetheless, but I think they have like the perfect plot point currently to end the show on a bang as we wait for season 2. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full uncut thoughts, head on over there and consider supporting, because this episode was a banger. And I'm really excited because I wasn't surprised by the end when our girl stabbed the king. That seemed like a given. The only thing that was a bit of a shock is I thought she was trying to go through him into Lord Perv, because it just seemed like the perfect angle, but I mean, the fact of the matter was, when you look at someone who is that important to you, that is family, that, hell, even if you're not related to them, that's literally the king being brainwashed to the point of being a zombie and a puppet. The fact that the only moment that felt like he was alive was when he more or less was like, "You're forgiven, there's nothing to worry about," before she ultimately stabbed. I mean, the fact that we get that moment where he's just continuing to get that potion poured down his throat, makes him smell like a zombie, and he literally isn't himself. It is absolute torture. The most peaceful and nice thing you could do to someone is to put them out of their misery. Because honestly, I've been saying it for a while, whether he was a complete corpse that was reanimated or he was alive and like quote unquote alive, but I mean the damage done to his mind, it's probably irreversible. There's no way in hell you would be able to recover that mind, in my opinion. So killing him in that moment was really, it was a blessing, but of course, it's no wonder why she immediately tried to take her own life, because had she not, I mean, her fate would have been far worse than death to begin with, and probably the guilt of killing to begin with there. I mean, there's a lot eating away at you. So the entire sequence was just absolutely phenomenal, but the fact that this episode was just non-stop banger after banger action sequence after getting all the establishing shots out of the way, I was curious, because every time Mundane Man fights someone, either he doesn't move and wins, or he does something like he sneezes, or he does a neck snap, you know, just there's a lot of goofy things that turn him into such a violent menace. And I was wondering, for someone like Iris, who is literally the one-punch woman, she will one-shot so many opponents, what would happen with her? I was like, oh, maybe they'll have maybe a more of an extended fight. Nope, instead, before the fight even kicks off, she visualizes her head getting cut off, or her legs getting cut off, or her just being stabbed and broken. And my boy is just being such a menace. He's like, hey, battle hasn't even started yet. Don't get a little too silly here because we still got a long way to go. Dude was an absolute lunatic. And just to see how brutal it was without actually lifting a finger, the most savage thing that actually happened to her was he grabbed her by the throat and threw her down. I mean, but everything else was all like either was a projection put in her head or her own worries. But I mean, that's the type of violent aura that Mundane Man, the average young man, will get across, and holy, that was absolutely brutal. The fact that we're ending with probably the big action sequence being between Elf and Shadow-sama, I mean, that's gonna be pretty cool, because this is gonna be an all-out brawl, and I'm excited to see how many burgers will be pulled from thin air for a little quick break to recharge the tank, as they violently cut each other to pieces. And I mean, I'm still surprised how many bodies we'll see cut into two. Like, there's that moment in the hallway, obviously I'm not showing it because YouTube wouldn't like it. Over a dozen people just cut into multiple pieces. It's just like, the carpet's pure red, and honestly, all you needed was a couple extra intestines kind of like dangling out to make it completely, just absolutely grotesque. But leave it to the show to honestly not pull its punches. The thing I'm excited about is, like, what I've been saying for a bit is, like, I suspected Perv, right? You know, Lord Perv, which honestly still makes me laugh that people deadass call him that. Like, him dying seemed like a pretty good stopping point for the season. But then again, characters like those maybe you want to keep them around a little extra longer before they ultimately reach their demise. There's a lot of ways this could go very, very poorly for him, but honestly, the fact of the matter was, we got to see so many moments of his face just being petrified, whether it's an elf saying, ooh, he smells weird, and he's worried his cover's about to be blown because he's obviously manipulating him, to then realizing that, oh, this is a guest who's actually very intense and powerful, so I gotta bite my tongue. Just everything about it was just really goofy and I love it. But I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what they want to pull, because this is one of those shows that I could watch One Piece level episode counts for. Like, it's just something that it makes me laugh. I think the action is intelligently written. There's an interesting shadow mechanic with like those slimes and everything, but also just the general swordplay is pretty fun to follow. Even when we're not in like this Sakuga animation fest where like characters are doing these crazy animation techniques that we've never seen. No. Half the time we're just seeing characters do like a slash, or they use some effects to make it seem a little more slow-mo, but it's still very engaging action. And when you have a character like Sid, who is just so ridiculous, I mean, Mundane Man was honestly a pretty good idea, even though he was coin toss of, should Mundane Man become a menace, or should Mundane Man disappear after this is all said and done for that dramatic effect? Sid is someone who is just, there's not much like him. And I think you can look at the flashback when he was wearing the bag over his head and he was cutting apart the bandits, you know, stylish Bandit Slyer. The fact of the matter was, obviously for her, that was like, oh, you saved me. Like, this is like, you just saved me from the bad people. That was literally Christmas morning. He just liked killing those people. Like, he's a menace. He absolutely is. And I love him. It was funny though last week because, as I keep saying, like, the harem is the only thing that could actually stop Sid. Eventually the harem could be the death of him. And it was funny seeing people be like, no, that's his sister. Like, she can't be a part of the harem. And I'm just looking at anime, I'm not even talking about just the general Sweet Home Alabama meme. Like, just the fact that anime in general, cis cons, bro cons, they don't stop harems when they really, really want to. And when you have last week's episode with our girl literally grinding on his lap as she's trying to choke him to death, you can't tell me they all ain't joining the harem or already are a part of the harem, let's be honest. But it was funny because I've seen enough anime to know where certain characters' intentions might want to end up lying someday. But even if not, it's still funny to joke about. But this has been a great ride. I think, honestly, the production has remained fairly consistent. The only real change was honestly between episodes 1 to then the rest, because episode 1 had its own like identity and style because it was a different world. But 2 through now 19, I really feel like they've remained fairly consistent. Like, it's never tried to be the sharpest show around, but it's had a character palette that works well into being a little more loose when characters are doing action moves or being goofy or doing all these different shifts in perspective. So in general, I think this has been a very consistent show, especially for being a back-to-back 2-core. Those usually start dipping massively in its second core just because too much anime is being made, not enough talent to go around. But yeah, this show has been an absolute blast, one of my personal favorites from both last season and this season, and honestly I expect it to go out with a bang, and then we'll wait for season 2, the next batch of episodes, because we all want it, and I think the production committee's aware of that, because otherwise, why are those rumors circling that they are going to be making more sooner rather than later? But of course, I'll pass the torch over to you. What did you think of this episode? Favorite brutal moment, favorite funny moment, whatever you're thinking, do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to ring that bell so you can get as many notifications to the channel as possible so you know when I upload. Also, as I mentioned, we got that full live reaction available on my Patreon. You can also get video shoutouts as well, so do consider if you so wish. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.